Welcome to a new campfire episode, and today it's all about gear. Well, over the last 15 years, Helmut and I traveled around 300,000 kilometers together on different motorcycles all around Europe and around the world. So we've been to some quite exotic places already. And today we want to share our experience when it comes to motorcycle gear and packing. So we want to talk about the 10 items you would definitely take on any motorcycle trip, and you will be surprised because some of them are quite unusual.
That's for sure, but very helpful.
And yeah, we want to talk about things we would not buy again. They are not worth the money, at least in our opinion.
And at the very end, guys, we're going to talk about 4 lessons, 4 tips we learned along the road that might help you to plan your next trip. So let's not waste any time and get started. Guys, first topic we're gonna dive in is camping, and therefore we talk about our, well, home.
Well, over the last 15 years, I think we slept in the tent for thousands of nights, to be honest.
Probably, like on a trip around the world, 5.5 years, I would say 70% of the time we stayed in the tent, and now in Australia as well, we
Also
basically
most of the time.
only camped, except for the time we did maybe a house sit or so. Yeah. We've been in the tent, so it's our home.
Yes, and therefore it's an absolute essential, and it has to be high quality, a good kind of equipment. And we use tunnel tents since the very beginning of our world trip, to be honest. There are different kinds of shapes of tents, self-standing ones and then the tunnel tents. And the reason why we opted for the tunnel tents since over 15 years now, is because the weight-size ratio is just unbeatable. It packs quite small and light compared to other tents, but still offers a reasonable big space inside. Also for sleeping, and in a big vestibule we still can store all our gear, the boots, everything. Well, from our big motorcycles now to the 50s, we downgraded the tent a little bit. Before we had a 3-person tent, and now we have a 2-person tent, but
basically
it's still
the same
enough.
tent, but just
yes.
smaller, which, you know, like right now we are a bit closer, which isn't an advantage all the time, because sometimes there's a certain smell in the tent, and then it's nice you have a little gap in between. With our smaller tent now that's not possible, but as Pia said, with our Kreidler we had to downsize our luggage, and the tent was one of them. But a tent is an absolute must-have, an essential on our journeys, because it gives us the freedom to stay at the places in between, the places less traveled, and we had some stunning camp spots all around the world. Campfire view, stunning sunset. So
they're
absolutely worth
yes.
to pack a tent, and you have the spot usually all to yourself.
And you don't have to rely on hotels, so you don't have to plan from village to village to village. You just, if something unexpected happens, or if you just want to stay in a beautiful place, you can just pitch up your tent. And that's the freedom we really like a lot about having a tent and camping.
Well, guys, and as Pia mentioned already earlier, quality absolutely matters, especially on such travels. And therefore we use since many years tents from Nordis. They never let us down. And the good news is they're absolutely affordable, and the even better news is
we are quite happy because we have a 20% discount code for you. So with TimetoRide you can really save a lot of money on this stuff. So if you're interested, we put you the link in the description. But as always, don't buy it just because you want to buy something. Really only buy stuff if you're gonna use it. And talking about using it, we also carry a little multi-fuel stove, and that's definitely one of the gear we use every single day when camping, because as you probably recognized in the last episode,
coffee in the morning.
Yeah, I'm quite a foodie as well.
Yes.
So we also cook in the bush a lot, and we don't have a campfire every evening, and therefore I really love my little fuel stove. The good thing is this thing really eats everything.
Yeah, basically gas, petrol, kerosene, I don't know. It's this white spirit, it's this list. But we usually use it with ordinary petrol from the gas station. We have it with us anyway on the motorcycles. We never had a problem. We
even used it with the 2-stroke mixture in it, which of course is not ideal, but
we ran out of petrol, and we forgot to fill it up on the gas station, and then I had to get some petrol from the fuel tank of our little mopeds, which was 2-stroke mixture. But it worked as well, had a nice smell while cooking.
Oh no, stop it. We didn't realize it at all. Well, it is, of course, the fuel stoves, they are a little bit noisier and a little bit dirtier than the gas stoves, but you're just a lot more independent, especially if you travel through different countries. You don't have the problem with the different gas canisters don't matching your system. So therefore, we really use it since 15 years and would not change for something else.
And as Bear said, 15 years, we cooked hundreds or thousands of coffees and meals on this fuel stove. It's still working perfectly. You do a bit of maintenance every now and then, but other than that, you buy it once, you have it for a lifetime.
It's definitely a gear that earned its place.
Yeah, it had to work hard, and it probably has to work hard in the future as well. So it's something we don't want to miss. Same with the tent, it gives us the freedom to stay basically anywhere. Yeah guys, and that brings us right to the next camping item.
Yes, and that's definitely our foldable chairs. And no, it's not this ones, these are all wooden chairs.
That's a burnable chair, not a foldable.
Our little camping chairs, they are still with our motorcycle, so therefore we don't have them now, but we also carry them since almost the beginning of our world trips. The first few months, well, we started our big world trip with big camping chairs, we was completely stupid.
You know, the stuff you usually would place in a four-wheel drive or in a big camper van, it was ridiculous.
We had
Super
them on
heavy.
the bikes, crazy. Well, we gave them away very soon, and then in Australia, actually back in 2012, we bought 2 of these little foldable camping chairs, and they've been with us ever since. So since, let me count, 14 years now, and it's still the same chairs.
250,000 Ks,
Yes.
more.
And so again, one piece of item that really lasts forever if you buy good quality, and it folds super small, like the size of a shoe, hardly any weight, I think below 1 kilogram, and that's definitely an item worth carrying for us because
it's this tiny bit of luxury, you know, like we enjoy around a campfire or wherever we sit.
Yeah, and they're super comfortable, even if they're so small and they fold together, but absolutely comfortable. So therefore also definitely one of our essential items.
Yeah, and that
brings us to the second last item of our camping list, and it's actually quite a funny story because it's a foldable bowl, like one of these foldable plastic bowls. And when I first bought it back in 2010, I think it was, so it's quite a while ago, it was not very common. And when I presented it to Helmut, I was very proud. Look what I found, a foldable bowl. And he looked at me and he laughed at me because he said, what would you do with this? Why the hell would you buy a foldable plastic bowl? But honestly, over time, it really earned its place as well, because I used it.
You can use it for oil change.
Stop it!
Fits perfectly underneath the motorcycle.
No, I started using it for, well, washing the dishes, of course, then washing our clothes, because very often we don't have a proper washing machine. Also, when we're a bigger group of people, I used it for preparing a salad, all this kind of stuff, and I absolutely loved it. Also, when we needed to get water from a nearby creek or something, just grab your bowl, get your water. Perfect. And over time, he got really jealous because, yes, you wanted to do your oil change, the bike oil change.
What's the difference, guys, between salad oil or engine oil? I mean, I don't understand, you know, but she didn't allow it.
Well, it really started kind of a little fight, but in the end we came to the understanding that we don't share this foldable bowl for these different purposes. And it's also an item, it probably would have lasted from the very beginning until now, but I have to admit, on our very last kilometers back in Alaska, back in 2016.
You lost it.
I forgot to close my bag and it opened and it flew away. So we lost it. I had to buy a new one. But at this time it was over 5 years old already and it was still doing fine.
Super
and
reliable.
I replaced it once and the new one is still fine. So also another piece of gear that definitely earned its place.
That brings us actually right to the last topic of the camping list,
which is actually the one and only which is not so sustainable, but it is really helpful when you go out in the bush camping, and that's wet wipes.
Yeah.
And you might laugh now and wonder why wet wipes, but they are really very versatile. We use it to just clean our hands, or in the evening when you're sweaty and you're your face is full of dust and you want to clean it and you don't have water or
visor
not
of the helmet, for example.
Also when you're a bit smelly and you can't have a shower, it does work, kind of. Or when we cook in the bush and we have no water for rinsing the dishes, I use a wet wipe and a toilet paper, and that does actually quite an okay job.
And every now and then we even use them for doing a crepe. So because she's mentioning this list, you know, we use it for this, and obviously they are made for doing a crepe. We use it for this as well. Come in very handy, especially as she said, when water is scarce. We do not have a shower for a couple of days. They keep you kind of a little bit fresh, keep the smell out of the tent as well a little bit.
Yeah, but very important, we never ever throw them into the bush, also when doing a crepe and we can't dig a hole. We always carry a rubbish bag and we collect our rubbish and take it to the next town. That's something that's very important. I think one of the basic rules of camping anyway.
Leave no traces.
Yes, leave the place.
That's very important.
Like
also with usual toilet paper, dig a hole, throw it in there and it's gone, or take it with you. But usually the wet wipes, especially if they contain plastic, just take them with you and leave the place so everyone else can enjoy it after you as well. And that brings us right to the technical part.
And I think that's all yours, because I talk quite a bit already anyway.
Well, now we're going to talk about tools. And first, or the most important tool, is a multi-tool. First of all, again, buy a proper multi-tool. Victorinox Leatherman, I use a Leatherman Charge. And if you buy a proper multi-tool, you have it for a lifetime. They last basically forever, and they also do the job properly. But why a multi-tool? Well, as the name says already, it's usable for basically anything. You have a knife, you have a saw, you have a file, you have scissors, you have screwdrivers. Yeah, for fingernails. So I use it basically every single day. I have it in my tank bag, and whatever turns up, I can quickly fix it usually with the multi-tool. Yeah, and second very important tool, at least for me, is a mini compressor. On such journeys, it's just a matter of time that you have a flat tire, or you might just want to lower the tire pressure to adapt it to the track or whatever, and then you have to re-inflate the tire, and therefore a compressor is good as gold. It helped us in so many situations. When we left Germany on our motorcycle world trip, I had a mini compressor with a little 12-volt plug, so I plugged it into the motorcycle. But nowadays they also have their own battery, and this battery is also usable as a power bank, which comes in very handy. But even more so, it basically powers the compressor, and then you don't have to run the cable and all that sort of stuff. So it makes it super easy. I can absolutely recommend one of those as well. And the last piece of gear, technical wise, is
an unusual one as well, I would say. A little bit like the wet wipes.
Oh well, unusual. Zip ties and duct tape, of course. Zip ties saved our lives already so many times, it's not real. So yeah, well, keep River Road.
I lost my exhaust and you fixed it with
exhaust mount broke, 40 k's into the track. And I fixed it with a hose clamp and with many zip ties as well. So zip ties, absolutely versatile. So a must have for me on any sort of trip. I even have a pack in the car if something breaks down, if you need to tie down something, whatever.
Maybe that's because we have such old vehicles all the time that we need all the stuff.
They're absolutely reliable. Well, and that brings us right to the last piece of kit that I wouldn't want to miss since quite a while, and that's my tire levers. When we started our world trip, we had ordinary tire levers, and they work just fine, but especially on some motorcycle tires and rim combination, it's incredibly hard to break the bead. So it jumped around the tire. We used the side stand of one of our motorcycles, but eventually I came across a different type of tire levers, and they're from Motion Pro, and they promised to break the bead quite easy. I didn't believe them in the first place, so I bought a set and tried it out by myself, and they absolutely work great. It makes the tire job just so much easier, and you can do it all by yourself, and we have a bit of experience on this topic.
And you have to say, we don't get paid to say this, so the tire levers, they are self-bought, but they're really handy gadgets, so therefore we can absolutely recommend them.
If you travel remote, pick one of those and take them with you. And that takes us to basically the last item of this list.
Yeah, a lot of you asked us already how we charge our equipment while traveling, especially out in the bush and camping wild a lot of nights. And well, in our case, that's a bit special because we carry such a massive amount of electronics that definitely
it's not funny anymore.
far more than the average traveler carries, which brings us back to the 3 undies, but that's a different topic anyway. So what do we carry for power supply?
Well, first of all, I have to say our Kreidler are probably a very special case because they have a very tiny little alternator. So it's a bit of a challenge already to keep our things up to charge, especially on remote places. And therefore, we carry additionally 2 power banks. Now they have quick charge, that is very important. So we're gonna charge our power banks during the ride. We're gonna charge our camera gear during the ride. And in the evening, while camping, we use the power banks again to charge whatever ran out of battery. So those power banks basically are a game changer. And if you guys ask now why we don't use solar, well, I researched it, I went through this topic as well, but it's just, it helps a little bit, but it's just not enough power to keep all our things charged. Even those big foldable ones, they,
at least not the ones that we can fit on the bike. They are just not enough for our gear. So
just not enough.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the setup with the 2 power banks and charging all our gear while we are riding constantly turned out very well. We've been to very remote places in Australia
a couple of days in
as
a row.
well. Yeah. So power banks for us, absolutely essential. Of course, it depends how much electronic do you carry. If you just have a phone, you probably can charge it from your motorcycle, but if the electronic part just goes, I would say, overboard, then
the power bank is definitely
a great solution.
Yeah,
guys, that's pretty much it. 10 items on the list, but we have an 11th one, and that's a bit of advertisement for ourselves, and that's our t-shirt. You might have heard about them. Funny story how this topic came up years ago. Someone wrote us and said, guys, don't you have any sort of cool adventure motorcycle t-shirt? Because there's none you could basically buy. And I always was a bit into this funny t-shirt topic, and then we said, why not? Let's create a couple. And then we started designing t-shirts, and by now we have like over 70 different motorcycle adventure t-shirts. So if you're looking for a new t-shirt, a hoodie, or just a present for someone else,
and if you want to help support our show,
then it's absolutely appreciated if you check out our shop. We put the link somewhere down there. And that brings us now to the last topic of the day, the 4 lessons we want to share with you.
Hang on, you forgot the topic, because we also wanted to talk about gear that was not worth spending the money on, gear that we would not buy again. And to be honest, there is actually no particularly item we would not buy again, but there's definitely something we learned over the last 15 years and 300-something thousand kilometers.
Sometimes the hard way.
Yeah. And it is the thing that it definitely is worth buying high quality stuff. And it doesn't have to be the super fancy famous brand, but just a little bit better quality. It lasts longer, more sustainable, and it's lighter and smaller in size. And that's all sums up. And if you have to use the gear every day for weeks and sometimes even months in a row,
you have to rely on the gear. Let's say it this way, especially on a motorcycle. Weight matters even more than on a camper van or, let's say, a 4-wheel drive. It matters in general, of course. Less weight, less wear and tear on the vehicle, for sure. And with motorcycle riding, there comes a lot more fun if the bike is lighter. So, as Bea said, that's a good choice. And that brings us now
to actually the 4 tips. Actually, this was kind of a tip already.
Yeah. But the 4 tips, or the 4 lessons we learned on the road, and I forgot the first one already.
No, the first one is you don't have to buy, or you don't have to bring anything for any possible situation from the beginning. So you don't have to have all different sorts of batteries or drugs or whatever. You can buy most of stuff anywhere in the world. So just pack a little bit less, and if you find out you need something, in most of the cases you just can buy it wherever you are.
Yeah, and tip number 2, regularly go through your equipment. If there's something you haven't used for a while, for a couple of weeks or even months, just give it away, sell it, send it back home or whatever. It makes your travel a lot easier, believe us.
And lighter.
And lighter, yeah.
And less packing chaos.
Yeah, that's right.
And tip number 3, and actually all the tips right now they head in the same direction. Pack for a certain destination. For example, when we started our trip in Australia, we started in very hot and humid climate. So we needed a bikini, and we had bikini with us, of course. But then on the Odnadatta track, it became really cold, like -1-2 degrees. It was kind of freezing. And so we decided, okay, we need a woolly hat and gloves. So we went into the next op shop, bought some stuff for $5, used it a couple of weeks. And then when we rode back up in the sun and the heat, we just gave it away. And that definitely helps a lot and keeps your luggage light and tidy. And that brings us to the last and probably the most important tip, and that's your packing list is yours. And what do I mean with that? Well, if you want to bring an item that seems useless for others, don't care about it. If you want to bring your guitar, your favorite cuddling toy, whatsoever, just bring it if it brings you joy. Because in the end, this is not just a motorcycle travel, this is your life on 2 wheels, and then you should enjoy it the most.
Yeah, guys, and if you are now a bit overwhelmed with all the gear, well, we wrote down a packing checklist, because quite often, especially when we start a new trip, we lose sight of all.
Even after all these years, we get a bit confused.
And it helps us, you know, to just not forget anything and to just not pack something we actually wouldn't use.
We put you the link in the first pinned comment, and of course it's not just the checking list, it's also all the equipment we carry in addition to the 10 things we mentioned now, because there is a little bit more, just a tiny little bit. So we listed all of this as well if you want to have a look and get some inspiration for your own trip planning. So that's all in the first pinned comment.
And that's pretty much it for today. Next week we're gonna see you at a place we haven't expected actually to return
so soon.
And guys, I was on cooking duties, and that means we had something absolutely special. There was, you know, there was romantic in the air. It was juicy. It was full of flavor.
Well, it was memorable, but not in the way he tries to convince you now.
Well, then it was already a good meal when it was memorable.
Anyway, guys,
we're gonna
check
see you
out
next
next Sunday's episode. It will be a good one as well.
Cheers.
Cheers.